Well, there is a trial unfolding in Pennsylvania so shocking and horrifying it ought to be front-page news and the subject of network news reports every night. And today we are looking why it is neither. And a little reassurance before we start going down this line, we are going to spare you the awful details, but we are going to talk about the case and the lack of coverage of it. Joining me now, Kirsten Powers, who's a Daily Beast columnist and a Fox News contributor, and Molly Hemingway, who's a reporter for the Get Religion blog on Pathos.com. Thank you both so much for being here, and I hope that the viewers and you will forgive me. I don't know how I feel about covering this if I weren't pregnant, but I am 6 months pregnant, and I really don't want to discuss the details of these abortions. And no one really does. No one really wants to get into the details of what this so-called doctor is accused of doing at this clinic for the better part of almost 2 decades. But the problem is, Kirsten, we in media don't get to decide what the news is. I didn't want to discuss 20 dead 6-year-olds in Newtown, Connecticut either, but that was the news. And we had no choice but to cover it. And you wrote a column this piece, and Molly picked up on it as well, talking about the total near absence of even a mention of this trial, not just by major publications, but by the health reporters devoted to working for said publications. Let me give you the first crack at it.
Yeah, well, I mean, Molly has really added to this and asking these healthcare reporters why they haven't covered it. And I think that whatever your position on abortion is, even if you're pro-abortion rights, this is a story of interest to everybody, because if you read the grand jury testimony, they had not been. This clinic had not been inspected in 17 years. He was in violation of regulations, and to me, isn't that a healthcare story? That you have a clinic that's violating the law, and that the health department isn't investigating it. That seems like something that should be of interest to healthcare reporters. And I think that there is just absolutely no excuse to not cover this. We know the media loves trials. We know the media loves, if it bleeds, it leads. We know the media even will cover things like Dave Weigel pointed out. He said 2 words: poop cruise. The CNN was covering nonstop coverage because toilets were backed up on a Carnival cruise. So they if you look at the things that they choose to cover and that they ignored something that's so overwhelmingly newsworthy, there needs to be questions asked about what's going on.
I mean, the long and the short of it is, this so-called Dr. Kermit Gosnell is accused of 8 murders, at least 8 homicides, 7 of babies, 1 of a 41-year-old, quote, mother. And it's been going on for years. And what we're going to spare you is the way in which he killed these babies, according to the prosecution. But let's suffice it to say, late-term abortions were no problem for Dr. Gosnell, according to the evidence that's been introduced at trial. I mean, wailing babies, and let's just leave it at that. But these are not, 6-week-old fetuses. These are babies that are kicking in their mother's wombs. Molly, you actually did some investigation on this, having read Kirsten's piece, and started calling reporters who cover the health beat for various publications and saying, what, why, where is your coverage of it, and tell us what you found.
I've been writing about media problems with covering abortion for years, and after I read Kirsten's column, I was inspired to make the question more personal. It's really easy to do a bad job covering abortion policy when everybody agrees to do it implicitly or explicitly. But I wanted to find out personally, why did you participate in the Gosnell blackout? So I just started asking some questions. And one of the reporters I asked was the health policy reporter at the Washington Post. She has written Sarah Cliff. She's written over 80 stories on Sandra Fluke, Todd Aiken's stupid comments about rape, and also the Komen Foundation, a private foundation that decided to stop funding an abortion provider. She got 80 plus hits off of those stories. So I asked her, why have you not written a single story on Gosnell? And she explained.
And she got back to you saying, and this is you published what she wrote to you. Hi, Molly. I cover policy for the Washington Post, not local crime. Hence why I wrote all about the policy issues you mentioned. So this, to her, is all about local crime and has nothing to do with policy, which, even if you accept that, you point out in your piece, Really? And was that the case for so many other stories that you that you did choose to cover?
There are local crime stories like what happened in Connecticut. Has that been handled as a local story of no interest with no policy implications for the nation? Hardly. Every media outlet is pushing for gun control and asking every politician what they're going to do about this. Part of the way it becomes a national issue is by asking national figures and asking people to respond to what's going on. And here we have a case where the President of the United States could be asked about this, since he fought against protections for these children that were born alive when he was in the Illinois Senate.
You
Seems
did.
like a good question to ask there.
You did. I mean, you point that out in your piece, and nobody's asked President Obama, in the wake of this trial, why he once voted against the Born Alive Infants Protection Act in the Illinois Senate. Can I ask you, Kirsten, though, we have not been covering this story in great detail because it's so horrific. It's so horrific. And, pregnant or not pregnant, it's just too dark to talk about the murder of all of these babies, and the testimony's been so gruesome. It's a hard subject to, put on the front page or in your program every day.
Well, but Fox has covered it at least 10 times that I know of. So maybe they haven't been doing wall-to-wall coverage, but they have covered it. And I think what's different, and I think when you look at a healthcare reporter, it's a slightly different situation, who does deal with, she's saying policy issues. Well, this is a policy issue. It's a regulatory issue. I mean, read the grand jury report. It's a horror show of how the government wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing, enforcing the laws that were on the books. That is a policy issue that needs to be looked at.
So what is it?
Why that wasn't?
But I have to go. But why do you think this is? I mean, is it that these are pro-choice reporters who don't want to cover the very dark places that abortion being legal in this country can go?
Well, look, I try very hard to avoid ascribing motive to people, which is why I really like what Molly did, which is just ask them and let them answer. Dave Weigel at Slate wrote a great piece people should check out, and he said, basically speaking on behalf of the media, we're all liberal, we're all pro-choice. This makes people uncomfortable, and that's kind of where they're coming from. I'm not going to ascribe that to people. They need to tell us why they're not doing it, because I don't think being liberal means you don't care about this. I'm liberal, and I don't think that I vote for Democrats. I'm not trying to overturn Roe v. Wade, but that doesn't make this not a news story, and that doesn't make late-term abortion okay.
That's the thing. There's a responsibility as a member of the media. We have a responsibility to cover even the hard stories, and the viewers. To some extent, they have a responsibility to consume this at some level, because we're talking about the most innocent among us. And this is not, do you favor abortion? Do you not believe in abortion? This is, late-term abortion with infants born alive, who, according to the state, are being murdered by a doctor, and he's been doing it with impunity for years.